Lesson 7-9, we'll be talking about similar solids, kind of like our similar polygons from before. We'll be working with setting up proportions and cross multiplying and dividing to solve for that proportion. Except for we'll start to get into surface area and volume as well. So for this first one, just kind of a warm-up, we need to set up a proportion using corresponding parts. So I'm going to go ahead and put x over 7 to show cone A. The radius is x. The height of the cone is 7. And now you need to match corresponding parts. So the 8 is the radius of cone B, and that will match with the 12, which is the height of cone B. And once you get to this point, we can cross multiply and divide if you don't see any relationships that we can use. So we would say 12x is equal to 56. Divide both sides by 12 to get x is equal to 4.6 repeating. And it says here round to the nearest tenth, so we're going to say 4.7 centimeters. And that'll just be regular centimeters because all we're doing here is we're finding the radius, and that'll be my answer. So again, just kind of a refresher here of how to use proportions and corresponding parts to solve for proportional shapes. So now when taking that information and using it to find the surface area of similar shapes, the ratio is still going to be there, except for we're going to square the ratio. So it'd be as if we went back and looked here, as if we said this ratio is equal to this ratio, but if we were solving surface area, we would actually square 8/12 to get a match. If we were finding volume, if we look here, to find volume, we would cube it. So again, area is squared, volume is cubed. So let's take a look at an example here. In this problem, we're trying to find the surface area of prism A, and we're only given information about this one side length of each A and B. So I'm going to match my 8/12 up with into a ratio, and then we're going to say that's equal to, now 8 matches with my surface area of prism B, so I'm going to put 376 on the top, and we're going to put that over x. Now again, if we look here, we're finding surface area, so we need that ratio to be squared. So what we're going to do is we're going to put parentheses around all of this, and we're going to square that ratio. Okay, now 8/12 is not in simplest form. I can divide both of those by 4 to get 2/3, and then we're going to cube that, or excuse me, square that, because we're finding surface area. And that'll still be equal to my 376 over x. It just gets a lot easier if we get it in simplest form. Now, when we say that 2/3 is being squared, we would really be like 2/3 times 2/3, or we can say 2 squared and 3 squared. So really we're going to have 4/9. You need to square both parts is equal to 376 over x. Okay, so now we actually have the proportion that we need set up, and now we can cross multiply and divide. So it's the same thing we were doing before, except for this step of squaring my ratio that we know. And when we find volume, you'll want to cube the ratio that we know. So we're going to have 4x is equal to 9 times 376 is 3,384. And now we'll divide both sides by 4 to get x is equal to 846 inches squared, because again we are solving for area, surface area of prism A, and it is bigger than prism B, so 846 does make sense for us there. So looking at the next one, it says find volume of a similar solid. So a triangular prism has a volume of 12 centimeters cubed. Suppose the dimensions are tripled. What is the volume of the new prism? So if they're tripled, I could think of the dimensions. So the dimensions could be like 1 to 3 or 2 to 6. I'm just going to use 1 to 3 because that would be easiest. It would be like, you know, if I had my triangle, my prism here, this one would be 1, and the next one would be a 3. So that would be tripled. So we can just make up our own here. Now remember, the ratio is going to be cubed. Okay, and we're going to set that equal to 12 goes with my smaller one, because it says suppose the dimensions are tripled. So that tells us that the 12 is going with the original one-sided shape. Now let's go ahead and cube this. So we're going to get 1, and we're going to get 27 is equal to 12 over x. We can cross multiply this. This ends up real nice when we use a 1, because we'll just get x is equal to 12 times 27, and that's 324 centimeters cubed. All right, so again, very similar to the problem that we started with our cones, except for the ratio that we come up with. We need to cube it before we can cross multiply and divide. And that's our last example for lesson 7-9. Your worksheet is on Moodle along with the answer key.